What if the thing standing between you and healing isn't a missing medication, isn't the wrong doctor, and isn't your age? What if it's something far simpler and far more within your reach than any of that? Think about where you are right now with your health. You have tried the medications, you have followed the instructions, you have shown up to the appointments, filled the prescriptions, and done everything a reasonable person does when their body starts asking for help. And yet, here you are, still tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix, still carrying pain that pills take the edge off but never truly touch, still waking up some mornings with that quiet, exhausting thought that lives just beneath everything else. Is this just how it is now? Is this the rest of my life? That thought is not a weakness. It is not self-pity. Well, it is what happens when someone has been searching for healing in every place they were told to look and hasn't found it yet. Not because healing isn't possible, but because no one ever told them where it actually lives. Your body already knows how to heal. It was born knowing. It has never been forgotten. What it has been waiting for with extraordinary patience through every treatment and every disappointment is not another pill. It is the right conditions, 4 specific conditions. And today, for the first time, you are going to discover exactly what they are. Think of illness not as an enemy that invades from outside, but as a fire that needs fuel to keep burning. And for years, without knowing it, most of us have been feeding that fire every single day. With stress, we never release. With harsh words, we turned inward. With stories about ourselves we accept as permanent truth. With a quiet, creeping sense that we no longer have a reason to be fully well. Zen does not ask you to fight that fire. It asks you to do something far more powerful. Stop feeding it. That is what today is about. 4 tricks, no pills, and a body that has been waiting far longer than you know for exactly this conversation. Before we begin, place one hand on your chest right now. Feel what is there. That heartbeat has shown up for you every single morning of your life. Through every loss, through every fear, through every day you forgot it was even working. It never threatened to stop. It just kept going. For you, without condition, without complaint. What you are about to discover today, it kept that heart going long before science had a name for it. Let's begin. Trick number 1, the stillness prescription. What if the most powerful medicine your body has ever needed costs nothing, requires no prescription, and has been available to you every single moment of your life? What if it was called stillness? We live in a culture that believes healing requires action, more supplements, more appointments, more effort, more doing. And so we keep doing more, and we keep wondering why the body continues to struggle. But here is something that changes the entire picture. Your body does not heal when you do more. It heals when you finally stop long enough to let it do what it already knows how to do. Stillness is not giving up. Stillness is not laziness. Stillness is the single most necessary biological condition for healing. And it is the one thing almost no one ever permits themselves to practice. In Zen, yes, the practice of Zazen, sitting in complete silence without agenda, without goal, is not a relaxation technique. It is not something you do to feel better in the moment. It is the deliberate act of shifting your entire nervous system out of the state it lives in during most of your waking hours. Fight, defend, survive, and into the only state in which deep, sustained healing can actually occur. Rest, repair, restore. The ancient Zen masters had no clinical language for what they were doing, but they understood its effect with a precision that took modern research centuries to catch up with. Dr. Herbert Benson, a cardiologist and mind-body professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School, spent decades studying what he called the relaxation response, the physiological opposite of the stress response. His research, conducted at Harvard Medical School and its teaching hospitals and published over more than 4 decades, showed something measurable and repeatable. When a person enters genuine stillness, not distraction, not passive entertainment, but intentional, quiet stillness, the body responds with a specific set of biological changes. Blood pressure drops, cortisol levels decrease, inflammation markers fall. Immune function, suppressed by chronic stress, begins to reactivate. And all of this, his research confirmed, can be triggered by 10 to 20 minutes of intentional stillness practiced daily. Not a pill, not a procedure, not a specialist. 10 to 20 minutes of stillness, and the body begins doing what it was always designed to do. But here's the part that no one talks about. So for many people, especially those of you who have passed 60, stillness is not peaceful. It is frightening. Because when you finally stop filling every moment with noise and activity and the comfortable blur of busyness, something rises from the quiet. Memories that were never fully processed, emotions that were never given a name, a loneliness that was always there, patient and waiting, just beneath the surface of a very full life. And so, without even realizing it, you reach for the television, the phone, another task, anything to keep the quiet from getting too loud. I understand that. I have lived inside that exact impulse. But here is what Zen teaches with absolute gentleness and absolute clarity. What you are afraid to meet in the silence is not your enemy. It is not a threat. Well, it is simply a part of you that has been waiting, without judgment, without resentment, for you to finally sit still long enough to acknowledge it. A student once told his Zen master, "I cannot sit still. My mind is too loud." The master asked, "If a neighbor were shouting outside your window, would you run outside and shout louder to drown them out?" The student said no. The master said, "Then do not do that to your own mind. Simply sit. The noise will exhaust itself, and in what remains, that is where you will find what you have been looking for." I believe stillness is the most deeply lost skill of our generation, the generation that was taught thoroughly and from childhood that personal value lives in productivity, in usefulness, in what you could provide, accomplish, and produce for others. And when the career ends, when the children leave, when the world stops measuring your output, many people find themselves not with peace, but with a hollow, unfamiliar quiet they do not know how to inhabit. The silence feels wrong because they were never taught that it could feel right. Returning to stillness is not a luxury for this generation. It is, I believe, with everything I have observed, one of the most urgent and courageous acts available to anyone ready to truly heal. Stress is the fuel that keeps the fire of illness burning. And stillness, true, intentional, unhurried stillness, is not the absence of action. It is the act of cutting off the fuel supply entirely. 10 minutes of genuine stillness each day is not doing nothing. It is the most quietly powerful healing intervention most people have never tried. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Wait, 10 minutes of doing nothing? I have a whole list of things I'm already not doing. Fair enough, but this is a specific kind of nothing. It is the nothing that everything grows from. The silence before the first note of music. The space between breaths where the body finally remembers what it is. The old sentence is, "I can't just sit there doing nothing." That feels like giving up. The new sentence is, "When I sit in stillness, I am doing the most important thing I can do for my body right now. I am giving it permission to heal." Most people will spend the rest of their lives believing that healing requires doing more, adding another supplement, trying another treatment, chasing another answer. and never discovering that the most powerful healing state their body can enter costs absolutely nothing. Well, it requires only one thing they keep refusing to give themselves: permission to stop. Tonight, set a timer for 10 minutes. Sit somewhere quiet, close your eyes. Not meditation, not visualization, not breathing exercise, just stillness. Notice what arises. Don't fight it. Don't follow it. Let it pass the way the weather moves through an open sky. That is the first trick, and it may be the most important thing you discover this year. So the first trick is stillness, cutting off the fuel of stress and giving your body the conditions it needs to begin healing itself. But here is the paradox that Zen reveals next. Stillness alone is not enough, because what keeps most people from healing is not just the noise outside, it is the noise inside. The voice that criticizes, the voice that compares, the voice that has been saying for decades, well, that you are not doing enough, not strong enough, not doing well enough. And that voice, that single relentless internal voice, may be doing more measurable damage to your health right now than anything else in your life. Trick number 2, the compassion switch. There is a voice inside you that has been running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for most of your life. It never takes a day off. It never shows mercy. And it may be the single most destructive force your immune system has ever faced. It is called self-criticism. And Zen has known how to silence it for 2,500 years. We were raised to believe that being hard on ourselves is what makes us better. That self-criticism is the engine of improvement. That if we are strict enough, demanding enough, unforgiving enough with ourselves, we will finally become the person we are supposed to be. Most of us have been carrying that belief for 60 years or more. And most of us have never once stopped to ask whether it was actually true. Here is what the research now shows clearly. Chronic self-criticism is not motivation. It is not discipline. It is a biological threat signal, and your body responds to it exactly the way it responds to any other threat. The amygdala fires, adrenaline surges, cortisol floods the bloodstream, inflammation rises, and the immune system, the very system responsible for your healing, gets suppressed. Every single time you say, "Why can't I just get better?" or "What's wrong with me?" or "I'm falling apart," your body mobilizes for danger. Not for healing, for war. And you cannot heal in a body that believes it is at war. Dr. Kristen Neff, associate professor at the University of Texas at Austin and one of the world's leading researchers on self-compassion, has found across years of study that people who practice genuine kindness toward themselves show measurably lower cortisol levels, better immune function, and significantly greater resilience in the face of chronic pain and illness. Her research, published in the Annual Review of Psychology, confirms what Zen has taught for millennia. Compassion is not weakness. It is one of the most precise and powerful biological interventions available to the human body. In Zen Buddhism, the practice of metta, loving kindness, is not a feeling you wait to have. It is a deliberate act, a signal you send. When you place your hand on your heart and say, "May I be well, may I be at peace, may I be free from this suffering," you are not wishing. You are speaking truly to your autonomic nervous system in the only language it was designed to receive as safety. You are telling the most ancient part of your brain, the threat has passed. You can stand down. The body can finally stop bracing and begin, at last, to repair. But here is the layer that cuts deepest. For many people who have passed 60, self-criticism does not arrive as loud inner cruelty. It arrives as quiet grief, the grief of comparison. I used to be able to do this without thinking. I used to wake up without everything hurting. I used to recognize the person in the mirror. That is not just self-criticism. That is an unfinished funeral. a mourning for a version of yourself that was never properly grieved, never honored, never allowed to be said goodbye to with dignity. And your body hears that funeral every single day. It hears, I am diminished, I am less, I am no longer what I was. And it responds the only way a body can respond to those words. It begins to believe them. I once spoke with a woman named Marion, 67 years old, who had been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 8 years. Throughout our entire conversation, every single time she referred to her body, she used the word it, as though she were describing a difficult neighbor or a piece of machinery that had failed her. It won't let me sleep. It ruined my trip. It's gotten worse again. After a while, I asked her quietly, have you ever spoken to it differently? She went still. Then she cried, and not from pain, but from something she recognized in the question. In 8 years of fighting her body, she had never once asked it what it needed. She had only ever demanded that it stop. Self-criticism is not just emotional suffering. It is a biological fuel. Every harsh word you direct at yourself feeds the inflammation, feeds the cortisol, feeds the very fire you are trying to put out. But compassion does not just feel better. It cuts off oxygen to the flames. The old sentence is, I'm so frustrated with my body. Why can't it just work properly? The new sentence is, my body is doing the best it can with everything it has been carrying. May it be well. May I be gentle with it today. Most people will spend decades in a quiet war with their own reflection, criticizing, comparing, condemning, believing it is somehow making them stronger. They will never know that the very habit they thought was helping them was quietly, systematically dismantling the only healing system they were ever born with. They will never give themselves the one thing their body needs most. Not a better treatment, not a stronger supplement. Just this, the decision to stop being their own enemy. Tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, place your hand on your heart and say these words out loud. May I be well. May I be at peace. May I be free from this suffering. Say it even if you don't believe it yet. Say it especially if you don't, because your body does not need you to believe it. It just needs you to say it. That is how the switch gets flipped. That is how the alarm system finally begins to quiet. So trick 1 is stillness, removing the fuel of chronic stress. Trick 2 is compassion, turning off the alarm system of self-criticism. But here is where it gets even more specific, because there is a third source of fuel that most people never even consider. One that Zen identified long ago and that neuroscience has only recently begun to measure. It lives not in your thoughts, and not in your stress levels, but in the stories you tell yourself about who you are, what you deserve, and what is still possible for you now. And changing that story, that single internal narrative you have been repeating for decades, may be the most quietly powerful healing act available to any human being. Trick number 3, the beginner's mind. You have a story about your health. You have been telling it for years. I have bad knees. I can't sleep. This is just how my body is now. And here is the most important question no one has ever asked you about that story. What if it isn't true? When a doctor gives your condition a name, that name does something both necessary and quietly dangerous at the same time. It becomes far more than a diagnosis. It becomes an identity. I am diabetic. I am arthritic. I have a bad heart. The name matters. It gets you the care you need. But it also does something no one warns you about. It tells your body a story about what the future looks like. And the body, shaped by decades of believing what it is told, begins to live inside that story with extraordinary precision. Every morning you wake up and reach for the same description. My back, my knees, my condition. You are not just reporting a fact. You are reinforcing a neural pathway. You are telling your brain, this is permanent. This is who I am. This is the limit of what is possible. And the brain, which neuroscience has confirmed continues to reorganize and rewire itself throughout the entire lifespan in response to repeated thought patterns and experience, builds exactly the architecture you keep asking it to build. Zen master Shunryu Suzuki wrote, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." Shoshin, beginner's mind, does not mean denying your diagnosis. It does not mean pretending you are not in pain. It means approaching each morning, each symptom, each day inside your body as though it were the first time, without carrying yesterday's verdict into today's experience, without assuming that because something was true on Tuesday, it must be equally true on Wednesday. The Zen master Nanin once received a scholar who came to ask about Zen. Nanin poured tea into the scholar's cup and kept pouring, even as the tea overflowed and ran across the table. The scholar cried out, "It is full, no more will go in." Nanin said quietly, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" Your body is waiting for the same thing, not for you to deny what is real, but for you to stop filling every moment with the absolute certainty of what is impossible. Here is the layer that cuts deepest. For many people who have passed 60, the health story is rarely kept private. It gets shared at family dinners, in phone calls with friends, in the very first sentence of introductions. "I can't come because of my knees. I have to be careful because of my heart. I used to be able to, but not anymore." And every time that story is told out loud, something happens that we never notice. It becomes more true. It settles deeper into identity. It moves from something you have into something you are. And identity, as Zen understands more clearly than almost any other tradition, is the hardest thing any human being will ever change. I believe one of the most unintentionally harmful things that can happen to a person receiving a diagnosis, not from anyone's malice, but simply from the way these conversations are often structured, is that a description of the present gets received as a verdict about the future. When someone is told, "You will have to live with this as a one," the words are describing today, but the body hears them as a description of every day that follows. And very few people ever have someone sit across from them and say the thing that is equally true and far more important. Your body is changing every single day. The story you tell about it is shaping it every single day. This is not a sentence. It is one data point among many possibilities still unwritten. The old sentence is, "This is just how my body is now. This is my life." The new sentence is, "Today is a new day inside my body. I do not know yet what is possible, and I am willing, genuinely, humbly willing, to be surprised." Most people will carry their diagnosis like a life sentence until the very end, never questioning it, never holding it lightly, never allowing even the smallest crack of possibility to enter. They will organize their entire existence around a story that was written on one afternoon in one room. They will never know what their body might have done if only they had been given a different story to live inside. Don't let that be your story. Don't let one afternoon define every morning that follows it. Tomorrow, before you name how you feel, before you reach for "my back, my knees, my condition," pause for 10 seconds. Meet your body with a beginner's mind. Ask not "how bad is it today," but "what is possible today?" That question, asked with genuine openness, or even if you don't fully believe it yet, is one of the most quietly healing things you will ever say to yourself. Stillness removes the fuel. Compassion turns off the alarm. Beginner's mind rewrites the story. And now we arrive at the fourth trick, the one that brings all three together and transforms healing from something you pursue into something you become. In Zen, it has one name. In neuroscience, it has another. But they both point to the same extraordinary truth, that the most powerful healing state a human body can enter is not rest, not treatment, not medication, it is meaning. And the moment your body believes it has a genuine reason to be well, something shifts that no pill has ever been able to manufacture. That is where we go now. Trick number 4, the purpose of medicine. What if your body isn't tired of living? What if it's tired of living without a reason? What if the missing ingredient in every treatment you've ever tried wasn't a molecule, wasn't a mineral, but a meaning? Your body is not a machine. A machine runs until its parts wear out, indifferent to why it is running. Your body is something far more extraordinary, a living system that responds not only to chemistry, not only to treatment, but to something that cannot be measured in a blood panel or seen on a scan. It responds to meaning, to purpose, to the quiet biological signal of being needed by something beyond yourself. And when that signal goes silent, when the career ends, when the children leave, when the world stops turning toward you for what only you can offer, the body receives a message that no one ever intended to send. But that lands with devastating precision. Perhaps there is no longer a reason to keep fighting so hard. A study published in JAMA Network Open, following nearly 7,000 adults over the age of 50, found that those with the strongest sense of purpose in life were 2.43 times more likely to survive over the follow-up period than those with the lowest. The same research found significant associations between low purpose and mortality from heart and circulatory conditions specifically. A separate study found that greater purpose in life is linked to meaningfully lower risk of stroke in older adults. And the research from the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center, which we confirmed earlier, showed that a strong sense of purpose was associated with 2.4 times lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. These are not small effects. These are not statistical footnotes. This is the body responding measurably, consistently, across tens of thousands of people to the presence or absence of a reason to be well. Zen Buddhism teaches this through the concept of right livelihood, not just the work you do, but the energy behind why you do it. When your actions align with something that genuinely matters to you, when you are not performing usefulness but actually living it, the body responds with a vitality that no supplement can replicate. Purpose is not a luxury that belongs to the young. It is a biological need that belongs to every age. And it does not require a grand mission or a public role. It requires only one thing: the honest feeling that something in this world is better because you are in it. And Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, who documented in Man's Search for Meaning what he witnessed in the most extreme conditions human beings have ever endured, wrote what may be the most important medical observation of the 20th century: those who retained a reason to live survived conditions that killed those who had lost theirs. The body does not separate biology from meaning. It never has. Here is the truth that no one says out loud to people who have passed 60. One of the deepest pains of the season of life is not physical. It is the quiet, creeping fear of becoming invisible, of waking up one morning and realizing that the world has continued turning and has not noticed your absence, that your role has ended, that the best of what you had to give belongs to the past. And when that fear settles in, when it becomes the water the body swims in every single day, something begins to happen at a neurological level that researchers describe as biological withdrawal. The body begins to contract its responses, not because it cannot do otherwise, but because it has stopped receiving the signal that says, keep going, you are still needed. There is still something here that only you can do. I believe With everything I have observed over years of sitting with people in the later chapters of their lives, that the transition into retirement, as it is commonly understood and practiced, carries a hidden health risk that almost no one names. The body was not designed for indefinite rest. It was designed to contribute. And when contribution stops without anything taking its place, when the giving ends and only the waiting remains, the body receives the clearest signal it can. The mission is complete. That is not peace. That is surrender wearing the mask of peace. I once knew a man named Harold, 79 years old, retired for 14 years, living alone after losing his wife. His health had been declining slowly and steadily for years, with no clear cause anyone could identify. Then a neighbor mentioned a tutoring program at a local school, one morning a week, helping teenagers with mathematics. Harold went, mostly to fill a Tuesday. Within a few months, something had shifted that his doctor noticed without being able to fully explain. His blood pressure had stabilized. His sleep had improved. And when I spoke with him, he said something I have never forgotten. I have a reason to wake up on Tuesdays now. He said it simply, as though it were a small thing. It was not a small thing, it was everything. Purpose does not arrive as a grand revelation. It rarely announces itself. It is the Tuesday you look forward to, the grandchild who needs to hear the story only you know how to tell, the garden that would go untended if you were not there, the neighbor who looks for your light in the window. These are not consolation prizes for a life winding down. These are biological necessities, as real, as measurable, as essential to your survival as the air you breathe. We have talked about cutting off the fuel that feeds illness, but here is the final truth. A fire does not just need its fuel removed, it needs to be replaced with a different kind of warmth. The warmth of mattering, of being needed, of knowing that something in this world, however small, however quiet, is better because you chose to show up for it today. That warmth is not optional. It is oxygen, and it is available to you right now in whatever irreplaceable form only you can provide. The old sentence is, "I'm done, my time has passed, there's nothing left for me to give." The new sentence is, "My body is still here, my experience is still alive in me." The question is not what I used to do, it is what only I can still offer in this season with what I have right now. Most people will spend their final years waiting for meaning to return, for life to feel purposeful again, for someone to remind them that they still matter. They will wait in a silence that slowly and permanently closes in. But purpose does not come to those who wait for it. It comes to those who choose it, humbly, deliberately, in whatever small form is available today. Tonight, write down the answer to one question. What is one thing, however quiet, however small, that only I can offer the world right now? Not what you used to offer, not what you wish you could, what you can offer today with the life and the body you actually have. Write it down, then show up for tomorrow. Because when your body has a genuine reason to be well, it will fight for that reason in ways that will quietly astonish you. We have come a long way together today, from the stillness that removes the fuel of stress, to the compassion that turns off the alarm of self-criticism, to the beginner's mind that rewrites the story of what is possible, to the purpose that gives the body its most powerful reason to heal. There is only one thing left, and it is the most important thing of all. It is the moment we bring all four tricks together and let them land where they were always meant to land. Not in your mind, not in your routine, but in your body, right now, in this breath, in this moment. Let's finish this together. Remember the fire we spoke about at the beginning? The illness that keeps burning because it keeps being fed? You have just learned the 4 ways to stop feeding it. Stillness, compassion, beginner's mind, purpose, not 4 techniques, not 4 steps on a wellness checklist, 4 conversations, between you and the most loyal, most intelligent, most forgiving healing system that has ever existed, your own body. You didn't need more medicine. You needed more stillness. 10 quiet minutes to cut off the fuel your body has been drowning in for years. You didn't need more discipline. You needed more compassion, starting with the person you have been the hardest on, without mercy, for your entire life, yourself. You didn't need a better diagnosis. You needed a new story, one that holds possibility instead of verdict. Wait, that opens a door instead of locking one. And you didn't need more time. You needed a reason, small, real, entirely yours, to truly use the time you already have. After everything I have studied and every person I have sat with in the quiet of their most difficult chapters, I return to this truth every single time, without exception. Healing is not something that happens to you. It is something your body already knows how to do. It has always been known. From the very first breath you ever took, your body has been moving toward wholeness, not away from it. The only thing it has ever needed from you is the right conditions, not perfection, not certainty, not a different body or a different past, just stillness, just kindness, just the willingness to hold and open the possibility that today could be different from yesterday. Just a reason, however small, however quiet, to keep going. 4 simple things. In a body that has been waiting and faithfully, without complaint, without giving up on you, even when you had given up on it, for you to finally provide them. Here is what I want to leave you with. Not a summary, not a reminder, just this. Somewhere inside the body that has carried you through every hard year, every sleepless night, every morning you weren't sure you could face, there is something that has never stopped believing in your healing. Not once, not even in the darkest moments. It kept your heart beating when you forgot it was there. It kept your lungs breathing when you had no attention to spare for them. It never asked for your gratitude. It never threatened to stop. It just kept going. For you. All this time. For you. But the least you can do, the very least, is turn toward it now and say, I'm here. I'm listening. Let's begin. If something in this video moves something real in you today, if something softened or shifted or quietly cracked open, please like this video and share it with someone who is still searching for healing in all the places it was never going to be found. Someone who needs to hear that their body is not broken, that it has never been broken, that it has simply been waiting with more patience and more loyalty than any of us deserve to finally be heard. And leave me one comment before you go. Just answer this. Which of the 4 tricks are you starting tonight? Because your body is listening. It has always been listening. And it is not too late. It has never been too late. You still have breath. You still have this moment. In this moment, right now, in exactly the life you have, with exactly the body you are in, is where healing has always been waiting to begin.